On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
I don't know what I'm expecting to, what am I looking for me being in a relationship for 1 year versus uh, us getting married straight away, because there's nothing that you're not going to know about someone without being with them anyway. But I'm not going to waste time, and how can I say this? I'm not going to allow time for me to have premarital sex, because I'm not going to, if you're not having sex with a person, you're not going to stay that long with them before you get married. Okay. We're not just going to sit around and talk. So we get married to prevent us from fornicating, from possibly having premarital sex, by accident, as they say. So that's why we tend to get married. And also, if things go wrong, then they go wrong. But this is why your father is there to vet your man. This is why the families are so involved, to be that net. If something does go wrong, the family is there.
All right, y'all. Again, make sure I get these likes. Let's get the show started, man. Let's get the show started. Our first topic of the night is the panel's reaction. Last show, we had dating manners across different cultures. And we're going to hear what the panel didn't say. So we had a great show last week. And we had Ameera on there. We had Nina, Anton, Courtney, and Kay. It was an excellent show. And there was a lot of talk. A lot of things were said back and forth. A lot of people in the comments with their own theories and perspectives and opinions. There was just a lot going on with that conversation. And I also had conversations with Courtney and Kay furthermore. And it's a lot that need to be said. So I want to kind of give you guys the moment to be able to ask the questions. Really, you watched it later because you wasn't here last week. You watched it later. I know you said you had some questions. And yeah, let's talk, man. Let's have this tough conversation right now. Mm-hmm. So who wants to go first? Don't all speak at once now, because there was a lot of conversations that was going on. I'm gonna start with you, Kay.
Look, I'll go.
Okay, go ahead, Rilla.
One of the things that I had a question about, Ameera, and when you came on, like, first of all, amazing job last week. You were dope. You were confident. I love an individual, male, female, or otherwise, that can stand on their square, 10 toes down, you know what I'm saying, and say what they believe and mean what they say. All that's great, right? However, it's just interesting because I'm always interested in people who have different perspectives coming from one culture, and then you come into Western culture and you have an observation. And so one of the things that you talked about was that you hadn't known your husband 5 weeks, right, before you guys were married. So can you deep dive a little bit in terms of why that happened? Because the other thing that you talked about was like you didn't understand this whole concept of like what love is. So I kind of want to touch on that too, right? Because you're 27, and how long you been married?
She's not 27.
I thought she said she was 27. No,
that was Nina. You're 27.
Okay, no, Nina was 23.
Oh, okay, got it. I forgot. I'm sorry.
No, I'm researching Bookie Boo.
Yeah, you own it. My bad. Go ahead, Rilla.
You was in Vegas.
I was gambling and stalking Usher. Yes, I was gambling.
Ameera, can we talk about? Can we deep dive into really why it's culturally acceptable for a woman to know a man all of 5 weeks and then we get married? Like, walk us. You look confused, so walk us through, because for Western people, when you see the look that you gave, when you said, "Hey, I knew my guy 5 weeks and we were married," a lot of Western people gave you that same look. So what I'm asking you to do is walk us through the foundation, like family, culture, society, norms that makes that acceptable for a woman to know a man only 5 weeks and they can get married and make a lifelong commitment without even knowing each other. If you would, please, ma'am.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
I don't know if you can.
Mute myself. I always mute myself. I'm sorry. So you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Right. So I guess the question is why why would that be accepted for a woman to know a man for 5 weeks and get married? And is there anything wrong with my audio before I continue?
No, you're good.
Just making sure. Okay. So I don't know what I'm expecting what am I looking for me being in a relationship for 1 year versus uh, us getting married straight away, because there's nothing that you're not going to know about someone without being with them anyway. But I'm not going to waste time, and how can I say this? I'm not going to allow time for me to have premarital sex, because I'm not going to, if you're not having sex with a person, you're not going to stay that long with them before you get married. Okay. We're not just going to sit around and talk. So we get married to prevent us from fornicating, from possibly having premarital sex, by accident, as they say. So that's why we tend to get married. And also, if things go wrong, then they go wrong. But this is why your father is there to vet your man. This is why the families are so involved, to be that net. If something does go wrong, the family is there. And the family has already vetted that person for me. My father already spoke to my husband. My father already knew the type of man my husband was. Men tend to see things in other men that women can't. I don't know why, but from what I've seen here is like girls, we tend to be kind of slow when it comes to picking partners, because it's hard for women to get past that adrenaline of like, oh, I like this guy because he's exciting and he makes me feel so butterflies. But my father knew how to pick a stable man for me. He knew how to pick one that was a hardworking man who wasn't going to let bills get behind, let things just happen. So I hope that answers your question. I hope that I understood the question right.
You did. You absolutely did, and you answered it in the sense of your father was involved, which is one of the things we talked about. And I know there's feedback coming from somewhere. If somebody can mute.
I'll mute myself. It's fine.
Well, if I can say this, and even from last week, we never know who's coming on the show. For me, even when I did my live, kind of just vetting to see who's going to be on the show and their mind frame. I always kind of think that's important so we can kind of have a real discussion. I think there's a very huge difference between culture and religion. And I think with you are a Muslim woman that takes that religion, completely serious, and you are to it to a T. But I think culture is completely different. So when we talk about religion, we can talk about the Muslim religion, but the Muslim religion is a huge religion that's spread out amongst the entire world. But your culture, being a Lebanese woman, is completely different. That sometimes this doesn't necessarily coincide with your religion. So when we talk about cultural differences, are we talking about religion or culture? Because that's what makes a difference as far as how she's brought in her ideas. Her ideas is of a Muslim woman, which a Black woman is a Muslim. African nations, a lot of Middle Eastern countries are. So I think with you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you hold a Muslim tradition and a Muslim religion.
Islam is kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like the culture. Honestly, Islam is our culture. It's not like we separate our religion versus our culture. If you put me in a room with a group of Somalis, we are going to have more in common than not because of Islam. That foundation is too much of our life to not be our culture, if that makes any sense.